Hello, in this video I'm going to be going over what you need to do in order to purchase a handgun in the state of California, some of the modifications and things that need to be on a handgun in order for it to be available for sale in California, and this goes for any firearm that is sold from a dealer. This does not count for private party transfers. Those have a little bit different rules. So the first thing you're going to need to do to purchase a handgun in the state of California is have a driver's license. If you don't have the real ID that they have in California, then you will also need a birth certificate or a passport to kind of verify your identity for the purchase of any firearm. In addition, pistols are a little bit harder to purchase in California, or not harder, but they require that you also have a secondary proof of residency. That can typically be fulfilled with any utility bill or something that can verify your address. The most common form is the vehicle registration card. So that's what I use, is the vehicle registration card. It is important to note that the address on your driver's license and the address that you use for your verification has to be the same. So if you have a different driver's license address than you do for your utility bills, or your driver's license address does not match up with your vehicle registration card address, that will not work as a proof of residency. And again, that secondary proof of residency is only required for handguns in the state of California. So I'm going to show you the handgun that I purchased, and I'll kind of go over some of the things that make it California compliant and other features like that, and then a general review of the firearm. So I purchased the Sig Sauer P226 Nitron. Now, what makes this different from a standard 226 is, again, it has the Nitron finish on the slide, and it has a different grip. This one's supposed to be more ergonomical than the normal. It's kind of interesting of note that there are no screw holes in the grip on either side of the firearm. No screw holes, because the grip is actually one piece that is seated onto the frame of the pistol instead of screwed on. So let me remove the lock. Obviously, in the state of California, anytime you purchase a firearm, you will need to have a lock for the firearm as well in order to leave the store with it. With both of the firearms that I purchased in the state of California, they come with a standard little cheap Chinese cable lock. I mean, this will get the job done, especially through pistols, or for pistols, but for actual storage, you probably are going to want something else, which I'll show later on in the video. So right off the bat, the P226, a classic firearm. It's been one of the most popular firearms for pistols in the entire world. It has a big history, which I'm sure most of you probably already know, and if not, it's well liked by the firearm community around the world. It's gonna work. It's gonna get the job done. It's going to be reliable. Okay, so in order for it to be sold in the state of California, the 226 has to have two specific modifications to it that you won't typically find in out-of-state models. So let me remove the magazines that come with it. Before I go over the modifications, I will state California has a 10-round capacity limit on any magazines. So the Sig Sauer magazines that come with the firearm, they will have 10-round cap in the screen. That's why you're going to see an extended bit of plastic before the metal, and they're going to have a 5-round marker and a 10-round marker in the magazine. Move the case away. So the features here for this pistol, I'm going to send the slide home. The main feature that all California new firearms must have is a loaded chamber indicator, and it's a little piece of metal here, and it will say, you know, what does it say exactly? Loaded when up. So this little metal piece will be in an upwards position, and it will actually be bright orange to let you know that most likely there is a round in the chamber, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. The other safety bit that this has is that the weapon will not fire at all if there's no magazine in. So I'll demonstrate. There's clearly no magazine in the weapon. So if I attempt to fire this weapon, which I'll do right now in demonstration purposes, you know, make sure the weapon is clear, chamber is empty, no magazine, the weapon is safe to fire. I'll demonstrate that the trigger will not click, it will not engage if there's no magazine in. So, first trigger pull, hits a wall, cannot fire. And I'll demonstrate that. It's in double action right now. I'll put it in single action by pulling the hammer in the rear position. Try to pull the trigger again, won't pull. So that's the first little safety built in. Now I'll demonstrate how it will actually work if we put a magazine in. We'll be able to fire the weapon. Magazine seated, double action again. Try to pull the trigger. You'll hear an audible click. The weapon will go off, and I'll demonstrate it does work in single action as well. Goes off, goes off, goes off. Now I'll remove the magazine. Will not fire. So that's one of the safety requirements that at least this pistol has to have in order to be sold in the state of California. Now I will demonstrate the loaded chamber indicator and how that is an additional safety built into the firearm as well that is required for the state of California. So I will load a single round into the magazine, like so. Single round. I'm going to lock the slide into the rear position, so we'll be able to easily see the chamber, the magazine in. As you can see, the bullet is in the magazine, it is not in the chamber. Now when I send the slide home, the bullet will go from the magazine into the chamber, and then the loaded chamber indicator on top here will be pointed up, and it will be bright orange, easily visible to the shooter. So right now, round is in the chamber. As you can see, chamber flag is up, loaded went up, lets you know, okay, this weapon is now loaded. That's a requirement for the state of California. So I'm going to decock the firearm at this point, remove the magazine. Magazine is empty. Now right now, there's still a round in the chamber. It should not fire, right? Because the magazine is out. But obviously, firearm safety, I will not pull the trigger when there's a round in the chamber because I'm not intending to fire this weapon. So I'm going to remove the round now. Now clear the weapon. Chamber is empty, magazine is empty, weapon is now safe. So those are the two additional little security things that this weapon has that need to be on there in order for it to be sold from a firearms store in the state of California. Again, if you do a private party transfer, it's person to person, you don't have to purchase a weapon that's on the roster. So you can get, you know, an out-of-state model that doesn't have those features in there. But to me, honestly, it doesn't inhibit the firearm in any way. So I've shot this thing. I fired a total of 150 rounds through this firearm. One was in an indoor range, one was an outdoor range. The indoor range, it was me and my mother. We shot it, you know, paper targets up to about 25 yards. That was my first time actually ever firing a pistol, and I'm very glad that this was my first experience with a pistol because this firearm is fantastic. It has an all-metal frame, it has a steel slide, and an aluminum frame. So since the pistol is a bit heavier, when this is loaded with the magazine, it's about 3 pounds. The heavier the pistol is, the less recoil you're going to feel in your hand when you're firing. It is, however, only 9mm, so the recoil is really not much at all anyways, compared to other firearms like a 45 or maybe a 10mm. Way less recoil than 9mm platform. So it fired perfectly fine at those 25 yards. The second day, I went to an outdoor range and I was shooting steel plates with my mother and my wife. Again, you know, that was like my second time firing the weapon. I was able to hit steel plates out to 35 meters very easily with this weapon, and I attribute that, you know, a lot to the sights on this weapon. And I'll show now. This weapon has glow-in-the-dark 3-dot sights. So it has the 2 rear sights and it has the 1 front sight. Now these glow-in-the-dark, very, very bright, and these are actually the Sig Sauer patented, whatever they call them, Sig lights. Now in the dark, I don't really know if you're able to see in the video too much, they do actually glow a bright green, and that will allow this firearm to be used significantly easier in low light situations. And it doesn't even inhibit in bright situations. I went out to the range, it was 110 degrees out there, bright day in Southern California, and those lights, you know, the sights were perfect. I could easily see everything. My target was clear, and the firearm hit the steel gong 35 meters every single shot that I did. As long as my sights were lined up, the bullet hit its target, so I really cannot complain. Right out of the box, these factory sights perfectly sighted in, the firearm did its job to, 35 meters, which is more than enough for most handgun usage. So that's my general impressions of the firearm. I'm very pleased with it. It's my first pistol I've ever shot, my first pistol I've definitely ever owned, and I'm very glad I got this model. It's, it's reliable. It has decades of, positive feedback. So it is a fantastic firearm for new firearm owners. My wife is a small woman with a small frame, so this being an all-metal handgun, aluminum and steel, the weightiness of it really does absorb most of that recoil. So it's good for smaller people. It is a full-size gun, which means you're gonna be able to get all your hands on it. It has just under a 5-inch barrel, so it's not a small pistol. This is, a full-size service handgun, but it is good for that. It feels comfortable to use. It's comfortable to shoot. The grip is a pretty gritty substance. I was worried at first it was going to kind of shred my hands up and get some like abrasion marks on there. That did not happen at all for me, my mother, and my wife. It was very comfortable to fire. We used it well. It didn't hurt at all. Shooting 150 rounds through it, the grip was good. Hands felt fine. So it's a great handgun. Would recommend.